Fortnite, when are you going to test Fortnite? Come on, test Fortnite. That's all I'm hearing in the comments. Well, here it is. And we're getting, what, 60 frames per second, 1050p on high settings. And the last 560, is it? 560X MacBook Pro 15, it really struggled with this game. Oh, hello. Is it going to kill me? Oh, don't kill me. I want to talk for a little bit first. I have noticed, actually, I'm using the keyboard now. It is a little bit warm underneath the W key, so I never noticed that when I was testing the games with PC, because I was just using a controller. But constant 60 here, wow, that's pretty good on high settings, 1050p, slightly lower resolution than 1080p, so that is what it is because of the, of course, the aspect ratio. And this is consistent over 50 frames per second. As I said, the last 560X, it really struggled on this game. I don't know if they've updated it, but this is performing really well. This is gameable. See when you pan, see the pixel response on this screen isn't the greatest. So yeah, you know, it's not meant for gaming. It's meant for content creation, you know, wide color gamut, and, you know, pixel response isn't the fastest, but you can output to an external monitor. I'm actually outputting to a capture card now, which I couldn't do in Windows. Don't kill me. I couldn't do that in Windows. Still getting over 50 frames per second. I couldn't do it in Windows because the frames would just plummet. So this is actually really good. It works on macOS. And yeah, it's gaming natively in macOS, so you don't have to boot into Windows to play Fortnite. The sound is brilliant on this. The screen looks fantastic. You know, the graphics look really good. But yeah, when you pan left and right, I mean, the frames are dropping a little bit when you do that. Not enough to give that blur. That's just the pixel response of the display. It's not really, yeah, a little bit of ghosting there. No, it is ghosting, but it's not meant for gaming. So yeah, if you really want to play competitive games, I mean, you're not buying a Mac for gaming, are you, really? So anyway, we'll test some other games, see how we go, and still getting over 50 frames per second. Once it gets down, once it gets hot, it'll throttle down that CPU, and the GPU will run at a constant, you know, 50 frames per second. And I've played this for like an hour before, not Fortnite, just gaming back to back, and the frames don't drop really once it hits that plateau there. It just sort of stays on an even keel. So gaming in macOS X. All right, so I'm playing Dota 2. Dodo, what am I talking about? And yeah, we can see here I'm getting, oh, let's go to a bright part of the screen there. We're getting over 100 frames per second, and this is just the tutorial, and yeah, I couldn't be bothered waiting for a game, but yeah, 1050p, high settings, and we're getting in excess of 100 frames per second. It's in the top left-hand corner. It's very hard to see. I wish there were better tools. There we go, 97 frames per second. You can see it up there now. All right. And obviously when there's action, this will drop down, but this is 1050p high. So you can imagine even if it drops 10, 20 frames per second, you're still going to get over your 60 frames per second. So Dota 2 won't be an issue. So we're playing Deus Ex Mankind Divided at what? Over 50. Whoa. 52 frames per second. That's pretty good. Top left-hand corner if you can see it. Really good. I'm doing all these tests back-to-back, so the heat is staying in the unit there. Oh, this is very sensitive, this mouse. That is phenomenal, because this is the system crusher. This is the one that I play or I benchmark on all the PCs because it usually crushes it. This and Witcher, and that's excellent frames per second there. I cannot believe it. AMD likes this game, I guess. And 1050p, high settings it is. So yeah. I know it's not 1080p because 1080p is obviously a bit higher resolution, but still, doesn't matter, man. This is really good. 44 frames per second. Fans are kicked in well there. So you're going to be playing, you know, if you want to go to medium, you'll get your 60 frames per second on this game. So I'm very surprised because the last 560 MacBook Pro, it was like struggled with games, and a lot of that is just how they're designed. Still, Civilization 6, even with this Vega, struggles a bit. So they need to, you know, step up their game if they're going to make a game for a Mac, you know, develop it properly. CSGO, 1050p, and we are at 90 frames per second, 114 frames per second. Oh, hello. Don't kill me. They're very playable, obviously. Once you get over 100 frames, I could crank this up, actually, higher resolution, but 80, 90 frames, sometimes going over 100, so that's good. No problems playing CSGO. We're going to 177 frames. Ooh, ooh. What's going on? Why can't it shoot? We are playing Civilization 6 and we're getting, what, 30 frames per second, 1050p, medium settings. I can't lower the render resolution. I don't know why. It doesn't let me. Getting 30 frames per second. They really have to update this game. Getting 45 frames per second now. Nearly 50 frames per second. So that's pretty good. If you get 30 frames per second on this, it's perfectly fine. Because it's not like a competitive game or anything. But yeah, 32 there. So pretty good, I guess. But with this Vega, it seriously should be better. Obviously, they need to optimize this game more. Because on Windows, like, it can run native resolution, you know, at 40, 50 frames per second. It's much higher resolution than this and a higher detail. So, yeah, fix it. 2K, fix it. Put this in Windows, tested it out. We're testing out this Vega 20 and wow, this thing can friggin' game. Like, it can really game, and we're talking 60 frames per second, 1080p high settings. Yeah. High settings. AMD have said, yeah, you can play ultra settings at 1080p. Oh, it's not that good. There will be some games that you can play ultra settings 1080p. It's roughly around a GTX 1050 Ti, I'd say, maybe a bit more at GTA 5. Now watch the whole benchmark. We'll go through the whole benchmark. Just watch how the CPU starts off at 45 watts and then goes down to around 15 watts. Depending on the game, this CPU can maintain around 15 to 25 watts. That's because when it uses the graphics card and the CPU at the same time, that's all it can handle. Now, it doesn't affect gaming. You're getting over 60 frames per second. Even after 20 minutes gaming, it's still getting 60 frames per second most games, other than Witcher 3 and Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which I always include just because they are so hard on the system, which those games, you're getting it over 40 frames per second, you know, drop it down to medium, you'll get up around at 60 there. So this thing is no joke, and comparing it to the gaming review I done on the last MacBook Pro with the RX 560X, it looks like it's around 35% faster. Now, I've only got this a few hours ago. So that's my preliminary results. About 35% faster. Apple said it was around 66% faster, and that's in Blender or something like that. But it's definitely 30, 35, maybe even more. And if you could actually have this graphics card in a gaming laptop, wow, it would be friggin' amazing. This Mac is only 87 watt TDP. An XPS 15 is like 130 watt TDP. That is amazing that they can get this much performance out of an 87 watt TDP. Did I say 97? I'm tired. 87 it is. So it's probably got a TDP of around 35 to 45, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Now, what's great about this Vega 20, it's double the bandwidth. It's got like 20 compute units compared to 16 of the 560, and it's got a much wider memory bus, like 124-bit versus 128-bit. 4 gigabytes HBM memory, it just smashes it. If you had a gaming laptop, for example, and you're using this Vega, this thing would friggin' fly, because you can imagine if you had a laptop with a CPU that can maintain 35 watts or even 45 watts, even better, you can imagine the benchmarks would be a lot better, maybe up to 10 frames per second better. So it may even be faster than 1050 Ti. Now, when it comes to temperature, for some reason, I couldn't run Firestrike or I couldn't run Time Spy. It's something to do with the GPU not reporting. As you can see in the gameplay, you cannot see the GPU temperature or speed. So hopefully, eventually, we will be able to see that. But given that when it runs at 15 to 20 watts, the CPU, it's only about 80 degrees. You can imagine that the GPU is around the same sort of temperature. That's usually how it is, you know, CPU and GPU, when they share the same heat pipe. Usually the GPU is actually cooler than the CPU. So the GPU is probably running at around 80 degrees. This will get up to 100 degrees. That's when it will throttle down to the 15 watt TDP, but then it will maintain that 15 to 20 watts and you're still getting over 60 frames per second. So it's a gaming beast. I've got a lot more videos to come out on this. I'm cranking these out as quick as I can. I've got to go to bed now. And I'd really appreciate a like because, yeah, I'm really tired and this took a lot of effort. Anyway, catch you next one, guys. Tally ho.